It's now time to turn to issues of competitiveness and the potential of regional development, a sort of pre-scan of the opportunities ahead for this particular region and, of course, Wagga Wagga itself. The person giving this is the inaugural Chief Executive Officer of the Regional Australia Institute, Sue McCluskey. She joined the Institute from the Council of Rural Research and Development Corporations, where she served for 3 years in a similar inaugural position as CEO. Ms. McCluskey's expertise in rural policy development, best practice, regulation and governance makes her an ideal person to help establish Australia's first think tank devoted to regional development. As well as a broad understanding of policy implementation, Ms. McCluskey's personal experience running a beef cattle stud in Yass, she'll get along well with Mal, I'm sure, exchanging notes, in Yass, New South Wales, give her grassroots insight into regional and rural issues. She was previously the Executive Director of the Office of Best Practice Regulation, where she was responsible for implementation of the Australian Government's regulatory reform agenda, including a new regulatory framework, strengthening the impact assessment and review mechanisms. Ms. McCluskey also was a consultant specialist advisor to the Department of Industry, Tourism and Resources Office of Small Business and held senior policy positions with the Business Council of Australia, the National Farmers Federation, another link with Mao, and the Australian Taxation Office, of which we all have our connections. So thank you, Sue, for coming here today, and we look forward to your address.
Well, thank you, and I'm very pleased to be here today and to be here with my board, our fellows, and of course the Regional Australia Institute staff. Particularly pleased to be here in Wagga because we think Wagga's got fantastic potential. And of course it's an area that has a great collaborative effort between the local councils and the RDA here in the Riverina. So we certainly think that that's signals well for the area. Mal's introduced some of our work and of course has launched the database and that major stock take of research that was undertaken as being one of our first major pieces of work. And one of the concerning findings that that piece of work actually identified was there's a real lack of research around opportunities and potential. And that's the conversation we at the Institute want to have. It's about what are the opportunities for the potential? What are the positives of regions? Let's not focus on what we can't do, let's focus on what we can do. But importantly, it's about how do you actually give that sort of information to the regions so they know how they can move forward. They know how they can tap into that potential. So what we're looking at doing as part of our competitiveness index is to be able to empower those regions, give them the information, give them the toolkit so they actually can work at a regional level, collaborate with others, co-invest with others to actually drive economic development and growth in their own particular regions. So let's have a look at what that framework might look like. The competitive advantage, of course, is something that's quite important, and it's realistic to say that you will get regions that will have strengths and they will have areas that will be more challenging for them. But it's how do you recognise that and how do you actually say, what can we do to really help grow? How can we pick up on those indicators that really help to make us a strong, viable, sustainable region? In terms of the index itself, Mal used the word excited, and I think we're all really excited about this because it's the first time it's been done in Australia. We have drawn on overseas work, but we'll be looking at over 60 different indicators at a regional level. It will be at the local government association level, so the LGA level, but we'll be able to aggregate that up to RDA levels so that you can actually see on a regional basis what are those factors that make a difference for your particular region. But of course we know that that's only one part of the story. There's also external factors and their local factors. So let's have a look at some of those because we actually want to hear from you, particularly through the panel, as to what are those other factors that we need to think about that will actually influence the competitiveness of a particular region. I do like this slide because what this does is say, Wagga's got potential, every area's got potential, but it's what pathway do you take to be able to really draw that out the best in that. And of course, depending on that pathway that you actually decide to go down depends on the information that you have. And that's what we want to do from our competitiveness index, is to be able to give you that information so you can take that and know that the pathway you're going down is really taking you to where you want to go in terms of the dreams and the visions for your region. So let's look at what are Wagga's competitiveness advantages. Well, certainly we did look at the statistics, but we also talked to a lot of locals. And there were two key themes that came out. One was water. Water is a natural resource. Of course, it's a key indicator of competitiveness. And you have a strong natural resource here in the Riverina in terms of water. The other key theme that came through was location. Wagga is actually on the crossroads between Adelaide and Sydney, between Melbourne and Brisbane. So that actually gives you a very strong locational advantage. So then we say, well, how do we then, in this region, be able to give you the opportunities to tap into your potential, to be able to bring people into this area? So what are some of those other indicators that we need to look at? Leadership, the people factor. Strong leadership, entrepreneurs, those sort of factors that actually make a difference at the local level. And it's one of those issues that's it's almost intangible. How do you develop those sort of people in your community? I can tell you that driving on the way down, we stopped at the Long Track Pantry at Jugiong, and that was terrific to be able to walk into this little cafe. It's had the bypass go through for years, and this is a thriving local business. It doesn't just give you food for lunch and breakfast. They've got a whole range of different relishes and jams and products. Terrific. Coming through here, Knight's Butchers. I'm certainly going to be going past there on the way back home. Beef cattle producer from Yass, and I buy my meat here in Wagga. Go into that shop if you can, because you'll see how you can just take what is a normal business maybe, and it's not just meat you see in a cabinet there. You actually see the opportunities of how an entrepreneur can actually take a business and grow it and make a real difference. So I think in Wagga you've really got those opportunities to be able to look at tapping into your local leaders, your local entrepreneurs. But what about the external market? Because of course the external market is something that we can't always control. And so let's look at what industries are dominant in Wagga. Certainly education. Education facilities are very good. You've got very good schools. You've got Charles Sturt University, you've got Riverina TAFE. That's all really important here. Manufacturing, strong agricultural manufacturing here, machinery manufacturing, so that's also really important. In terms of your biggest employer, probably public administration and safety, largely due to the fact that you have a strong defence presence. But what does this mean, and how does this fit with the predictions for economic potential? So in terms of the ability to attract external resources, land prices. Look at your land prices here and compare them with other areas in New South Wales. Very competitive. It means you do have a strong ability to bring people in and keep people here. The potential for the Bowman Business Park certainly is something that's really promising. And look, yes, I know there's some way to go in terms of how that will develop, but that's certainly a great opportunity here for Wagga in terms of what are the regional factors that you have to be able to attract those external resources. Now I think I'll move on to conclusions here, because the really important thing we're here to do is to hear from you. We want to know what are the factors in Wagga and what are the issues in Wagga that really can start to enrich our competitiveness index. The competitiveness index is something that we will actually be developing over the next few months. We'll have a scoping paper out in the next couple of weeks, and we really are interested in your feedback, particularly around the development of those indicators we have. We are hoping to have that index live and launched in the first part of next year, which means we can then start to apply that on a regional basis over the next years, and we will be looking to update that on a reasonably frequent basis. And that way we will have that sort of live information and data that comes back to you at the regional level. So what I might do is now look to get the panel up here and pass over to Mal, and we'll start to really get into the nuts and bolts and the detail around what are the issues for Wagga, what are the potentials, how do we change the conversation from being a negative one and one of what don't we have, to that really positive opportunity conversation around where are we now, where do we want to get to, how do we get there, and how do we really tap into that potential that we know all regions have, and Wagga has it very much so. Thank you.